We are following breaking news out of the Middle East, where the U.S. and Iran are currently locked in a power struggle over the Strait of Hormuz.
So President Trump writing that the strait remains open, adding the U.S. will now reinstate its naval blockade in the crucial waterway. But this time, Trump says the U.S. will only stop Iranian ships from passing through and just going to let every other country have open use for a small fee.
However, Iranian leaders claim they have control, and they say the strait is closed. Officials in Tehran are accusing the U.S. of endangering the world's oil supply and say they will manage the strait with, quote, strength and power.
We are already seeing a rise in oil and gas prices amid this back and forth, with Americans now paying almost 10 cents more at the pump compared to just last week. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley has been following all the back and forth. He joins us from Tel Aviv. So, Matt, CENTCOM says the U.S. struck and degraded Iran's ability to attack commercial ships. We also saw several U.S. allies under fire from Iran this week. How stable is it? And if you're trying to take your ship through the Strait of Hormuz, how much confidence would any independent operator really have in this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, not much confidence at all, and that's why we've already seen the number of ships that have been going through the Strait of Hormuz decrease to essentially the level that we saw before that memorandum of understanding was signed by President Trump and by Iran last month. So we're talking about a return to the status quo in so many different ways, because first of all, it's clear that the main thing that that memorandum of understanding was designed to resolve was governance and passage through the Strait of Hormuz. That is clearly still an open wound in this conflict, and one that could lead to even more violence. So we haven't really seen any fighting since overnight, which was the last time that we saw the United States striking Iran, and that was on the U.S. side. The Iranians, according to several regional allies of the U.S., have been firing at various countries throughout the Gulf region, including countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, and Oman. So this is an issue that is really standing in the way of just about every other aspect of this ceasefire.
Matt, any word on a timeline in terms of when peace talks, any sort of negotiations may resume at this point?
It's a great question, Vicky, and the fact is that we haven't heard anything at all. We have had no word of any rescheduled negotiations. We haven't seen any real effective negotiations for about 2 weeks since we saw negotiators meeting in Doha and Qatar, but by all accounts, that went nowhere. And what we're talking about now, again, are not these 60 days of negotiations toward a comprehensive deal. That looks very far away. If anything, the negotiators and all of the talks, if they were to happen, would still be focused on the primary issues that brought us up to this memorandum of understanding. That the Strait of Hormuz should be unblocked, that the fighting should stop. Both of those things are still ongoing.
All right, Matt Bradley, we appreciate it. Thank you, Matt.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.